Okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home, the trailer dropped, and the big question, of course, is what the fuck did Strange do? Like, I feel as though the multiverse is just over it at this point. Every time it turns around, someone else is breaking it. Wanda's over here being a Nexus event. Sylvie's over here killing Kang and spilling the multiverse into creation. And then Doctor Strange is just messing up like a simple spell. So, from the trailer, Peter comes to Strange and asks him to more or less erase his existence as Spider-Man from everyone's mind. Now, for comic book aficionados, we've seen a version of this story before. It deals with Peter and Mary Jane are married. Peter reveals himself. Aunt May gets shot. Peter goes to Mephisto and asks Mephisto to erase everyone's minds of him coming out as Spider-Man. Mephisto says yes. He erases everyone's mind, but he says that the price of payment isn't your soul, it's the love between you and Mary Jane. So you and Mary Jane can never be together because I have your true love. It was a shitty story. I think every single Spider-Man fan can definitely say that they absolutely hate that story. But in this one, Peter goes to see Strange, and we see that Wong more or less tells Strange not to cast a spell because it's a horrible idea. Which it is a horrible idea. The spell, in a sense, even though it's rewriting the universe, is supposed to be super simple. Using Peter as a base, and him knowing what he wants, him wanting to erase everyone's minds, the spell would erase everyone's minds, and he would step outside, and no one would remember him coming out as being Spider-Man. Here's the problem, and I like the fact that it's a callback in a different sense to Spider-Man 2. Which, in Spider-Man 2, you see Peter web-slinging through the city, and as he's web-slinging through the city, he goes to fire his webs and nothing happens, and he plummets and he falls. And the doctor more or less tells him that, it's a psychological thing, you have to decide. Are you, like, Peter Parker, or are you Spider-Man? He chooses to be Peter Parker and loses access to all of his abilities. And they're more or less going this route as well. Peter can't have his cake and eat it too. Like, he can't erase everyone's minds about him being Spider-Man and then pick and choose who he wants to forget that he is Spider-Man. Because he can't decide what exactly that he wants, the spell more or less goes awry. And when it goes awry, it goes absolutely awry, because in the trailer, I'm trying to avoid any type of copyright issue, we see Strange more or less telling him that, you have to make up your mind and to stop talking. And he's speaking all of these things into existence, like, I want people to forget, I want people to remember, I want this, I want that. And because he wants all of these things, he essentially collapses 3 different Earths into one. The 3 Earths being the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and then his own universe. And it's going to have to be him and Strange more or less traversing their new situation to undo the spell. I'm interested to see whether or not they're going to go the route that the comic book went the route, which is that in the comics, the spell was more or less perfect. Him and Mary Jane broke up, and no one remembered that he was Spider-Man. I don't feel as though they're going to go that route. I feel as though, more or less, he's going to learn that he's just going to have to live with the situation that he's in, where he has a public identity now as Spider-Man. And I feel as though him and Strange are going to be more or less messing up everything as they try to run through the multiverse, because this is more or less going to lead into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So he's going to run into Wanda, and he's also supposed to run into America Chavez, who's running from, what is she running from? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's the giant tentacle thing. I'll put his picture like over there somewhere. It's like Shima-Gorath. I don't know why that popped into my head, but it might be it. That might be Shima-Gorath. But yeah. So another thing that I had noticed before like we move on is in his spell work, we see him do this, where he pours something into the bottle. Now, we've seen a version of that before in regards to Thor, where he has to have something from Peter himself, typically a hair, and that hair binds the spell to Peter Parker. It just so happens that when the spell goes awry, it also binds to other Peter Parkers out there in the multiverse. But we're already seeing behind the scenes photos of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire suited up as Spider-Man. I kind of wish they used the retired Spider-Man suit where he's no longer wearing the mask and it's just like the jacket for Tobey Maguire. That's dope. But it looks like we're getting classic suit Tobey Maguire, classic suit Andrew Garfield, and then of course Tom Holland. But yeah, that is what happened when Strange cast the spell. And I absolutely cannot wait for this movie to come out. It's going to be dope as shit. Peace.